this video is going to be about my anxiety and dealing with anxiety in the apocalypse, because we are obviously in some very dark and troubled times, to say the least. I have done previous videos about anxiety. I've mentioned it in several videos, and I did a couple of videos strictly on anxiety. There wasn't a whole lot of interest, but now I've had someone actually request that I do another video on anxiety. And I've been wanting to vent about a lot of things that have happened lately, and I just never got around to it because I had other ideas. Some of the ways that I deal with anxiety, I write, and I write songs, and that's very therapeutic for me to have a creative outlet to get this stuff out. But there were some things that I've gone through that I did kind of want to vent about. One of them, I was very worried about my cat, Allie, and I might do a separate video about that. I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff to get to. I apologize if this is too long, but I might be rambling because there's just a lot of stuff to go through. Okay, so I should probably start at the beginning, just in case if this is the first video you're seeing of mine and you don't know anything about my history. I'll just back up my history a little bit. Okay, so I've always been an introvert. I've always been shy, even as a child. You know, I was one of those kids you'd call painfully shy. So as an introvert, I was never super comfortable with a lot of people. I never liked crowds. I had a few people that I was close to, like my family, and I would have like one or two good friends. And as long as I was with my safe people in my safe place, I was okay. But I never was a fan of strangers, even from the beginning. So now, some people are naturally extroverts and they naturally like being surrounded by people, and that's not me. But right now I'm actually very grateful that I'm an introvert, because introversion is survival at this point. Like, I feel bad for people that are extroverts because you want to be around people and they can kill you. Because we are still in a pandemic, even though people don't want to admit it, we definitely are. Anyway, okay, so I was an introvert. I didn't like being surrounded by people. I was also always a type A personality, a bit of a perfectionist. Like in school, everything had to be the best. You know, I got straight A's, won awards all through school. Now, I remember reading when I was in school, because I had so much stress, like, about getting good grades. For some reason, I just never felt good enough. Like, I always felt like anything I did, it just never quite measured up to what I felt like it should be. And I remember reading about levels of stress and how a certain amount of stress is actually good for you, that it actually enhances your performance. Like if you're writing a test or something. Okay, let's use that as an example, okay? So when I had an exam to write, I was terrified. Even though, I mean, I was a good student, I paid attention in class, I had my notes, everything was impeccable, I would study for hours, I was prepared. But once I got to that test, oh my God, because it was like, I was terrified because I doubted myself. I didn't feel good enough. So I would sit and look at the test, I'd look at the question and think, oh crap. And I remember, when you had to write like essay questions, you had this foolscap paper. It was called foolscap. I don't know if they still have it. This long paper. It had no holes. It was just this long paper. And I remember I was so nervous that my hands were sweating so much. My knuckle would be blue from the paper, from the ink from the paper. Anyways, I would be terrified. I would walk out of the exam feeling like, oh my God, I failed it. And I remember I would say to my friends, oh my God, I failed that. And then there was some, you know, obnoxious guy and go, oh, I aced that. That was easy. It's like, we were completely at odds, this guy. And we actually ended up dating. But anyway, that's another video, which I will never do. But anyway, okay, so I would walk out and I wasn't like being humble or anything. I legitimately thought I did terrible. Then we'd get the exams back and I would get like 92%. And my friend would kind of roll her eyes like, whatever. But honestly, like, I guess because to me, my standards were always too high. Like, say my standards are up here and I felt like, you know, my performance was down here. Meanwhile, the teacher's standards are, you know, somewhere in the middle and my result was here. So I would think I was going to fail and I would excel. So in some ways, being, you know, high-strung, whatever, being plagued by self-doubt and stressing myself out, that actually made me a better student. But then you get out into the real world, you know, and you're working. And I worked many different jobs. And I mean, some jobs forced me to be with people. And in a way, it was good because it stretched my boundaries. Like, I used to be nervous if buying something in a store, going up to a cashier. But then I became a cashier. I worked in stores. And being on the other side of the counter, I was no longer afraid of cashiers because I had been one anyways. Or answering phones. Like, I used to be nervous if I had to phone somewhere. Like, I'd be afraid of making a phone call. But then I worked in enough jobs where I worked in offices, I was answering the phone. And you get so used to it. Like, you have this professional demeanor and this certain way that you answer the phone, and, you know, that became normal. So then I was fine with phone calls. So certain things, you know, they might not be your favorite, but if you get more experience, then you feel more comfortable. But, okay, let's get a little bit further ahead. So, I was diagnosed with GAD, general anxiety disorder, and severe PTSD years ago, so pre-pandemic. I'm not going to say where I worked. I'm just not. I have to keep some things to myself, but I will say that I worked in a very stressful, toxic environment for many years, like almost 2 decades. So looking back, I don't even know how I survived it for so long. I honestly don't. There were, like, at least one of the places that I worked in this field, I had friends, I had people that I could relate to and that were a support system for me, and that really helped. But it was always a stressful job. What made it that much more difficult was when I found myself a single mom. Okay. So I was off on maternity leave for a year. That got me out of the place, away from that toxic environment. And then I had different stresses. You know, I was a single mom. I was on my own, and I was raising a baby on my own. When I had to go back to work, I was afraid. I didn't know how it was going to work. I mean, I was breastfeeding. How was I going to feed my baby? I mean, I had a pump and I stored the breast milk. Anyway, logistics, I worked things out. I also worked out a plan where I could work part-time. So even though the job was still stressful, it was still this toxic, horrifying, you know, place, but at least I was only there half the time. And it was difficult. Like, I worked shift work, and I was commuting a lot. I lived in one city, my childcare was in another city, and I worked in it. Like, I was commuting a lot. I was on the highway for hours at a time. And I was always sleep deprived because the nature of my job, 12-hour shifts. Sometimes I hadn't slept at all, and I'm driving for hours, and then you're taking care of a baby. Like, I don't know how I got through that, but I did. And then it reached a point where they forced me to return to full-time. So that just about killed me, because now it was, you know, when it was only a couple of days a week, I could have managed, but now full-time hours, chronic sleep deprivation, and like my schedule was crazy. I mean, like night shift, I would be taking my daughter to school and then coming back home trying to catch like maybe an hour of sleep, a couple of hours of sleep, getting her from school, driving her to childcare, driving to my job, working 12 hours at an extremely, I cannot stress enough, stressful, high pressure, a lot of responsibility, and disturbing things, dealing with disturbing things routinely. Like, I don't know how I survived this, but I started really feeling it. Like, I was breaking down. I would basically, I would bawl my eyes out on the way home from work. Like, just bawling. Like, I would try to hold it together while I was at work, but on the way home, I was breaking down because I was running on empty in every way. I was sleep deprived. I could never get my sleep. I had the constant stress of dealing with the job, and then being a single mom, even though I loved my daughter so much and she was everything to me, but also because it was part of my nature to never feel good enough. So worrying, am I a good enough mom, and feeling guilty about leaving her, and just everything. Well, everything came to a head this one year. because the job itself kept getting worse as well. The world kept getting worse, and my job was an extension of that, dealing with all these horrors that are going on. Like, I kind of had a front seat for the apocalypse even before it was fully the apocalypse. So I was dealing with a lot of things, and I had a really bad night. It was very busy night shift. And even like everyone was saying, like even people that, you know, usually seem like nothing gets to them, it was getting to them. It was a really bad horror show that we went through. And I just kind of cracked. And I didn't know how I was going to go on. And I couldn't even hold it together at work. I was crying at work. I was like slamming things. I was losing it. And I couldn't even give a name to what I was feeling. I just knew that I was breaking in every way. And through my work, there was an email, and it described cumulative PTSD. And kind of this light went on, because when I read the symptoms, I had every one. And I realized, oh my God, because when I'd heard of PTSD before, post-traumatic stress disorder, to me, that was someone that had been robbed at gunpoint. That was somebody that, you know, was a war veteran. They had lived through a war. Like, it wasn't someone that just went to a job every day and suffered from chronic stress and traumatic events, and just like that. It was like a tree, instead of being chopped down in one blow, these little nicks that keep happening, and eventually you're so unstable, you're coming down, like you're gonna crash. And it's that cumulative effect of every day, and the fact that I was on no sleep, and just like, so when I read this, I thought, oh my God, like this is me. And I think I talked to someone in HR about it, and she said, well, if that's the case, like you need to be diagnosed, because that's a workplace injury and you have to go through steps. Anyway, long story short, I had an appointment with a psychiatrist. And when I talked to him, he's like, oh yeah, for sure, you have PTSD. But he's like, anyone would, like, living your life. Your life is insane. Like, you're alone with no help, because my daughter's father disappeared when I was 4 months pregnant, and I had no help from him. So on my own, raising a child, and with one of the most stressful jobs you can probably have, dealing with the world collapsing around you, and you're trying to hold it all together on no sleep, you know, and chugging the caffeine just to stay awake and alert, and driving for hours at a time. Like, I honestly don't know how I lasted. And even the psychiatrist said anyone living your life would be breaking down. Like, this is not sustainable. But I didn't know what I could do. Like, what do you do? So anyway, so he wanted to put me on drugs, which I don't trust medications, because I've known people on antidepressants and on anti-anxiety meds, and half the time the side effects are worse than what they're supposed to be curing. Like, I remember seeing an antidepressant, and one of the side effects may cause depression, may even cause you to commit suicide. Like, how is that a cure? But anyway, and then the anti-anxiety meds, they're no help either. A lot of them, they're extremely addictive and can make you so drowsy you can't operate machinery. Well, how are you going to drive to your job like that? But anyways, so no, I did not trust medications. That to me was not the answer. But anyways, it was determined that I was going to have therapy, and because it was a workplace injury, it was covered anyway. So an appointment was set up with a psychologist, and she diagnosed me with generalized anxiety and severe PTSD. I was having nightmares. Like, I was having horror movie nightmares, and just like everything. It was just too much. It was all just too much. But it did help having a therapist and having someone to talk to about it. But I wasn't fit to work. And when I'd go into work, like, I was, you know, I was having crying spells. I would try to hold it together, but I was breaking down. And I got to the point where it's like, I can't work. I went to my family doctor, and she said, yeah, no, you can't work, and you're not going to. So she put me on stress leave, so I had a month off. And then I would go back to see her, and she'd say, yeah, no, you still need time off. And then she just kept renewing it. Anyways, long story short, so I was going through therapy. I was in therapy for years. And this is all before the pandemic even happened. So having the therapy helped. My sister was my best friend. I could always talk to her, and she always seemed to know the right thing to say and help me feel better. She listened without judgment. Like, I talked to my mom a lot too, but my mom is a little bit more judgmental and can sometimes make you feel worse. She's not exactly a ray of sunshine, but anyway, but I had people to talk to, and I had my therapist. So fast forward to the pandemic, okay? So now living through a global pandemic and trying to deal with that. And I was informed and I knew the risks. So I was avoiding people as much as possible. And early on in the pandemic, at least there were mask mandates. So you knew you were safe when you went out. I still didn't like it, but I just went out for necessities, like went out to the grocery store. That was my least favorite place, but we were masked. Everyone stayed 6 feet apart and whatever. And people were trying to be careful. So once people dropped their guard and just didn't care anymore, nobody was masking, I didn't want to go anywhere. And luckily, I could start getting groceries delivered. And I did that. So my one outing, going out for groceries, I wasn't doing that. I got everything delivered. Now, because I'd been in therapy for years and I'd gone through this whole program, and also they actually sent me back to work, but in a different department that was less stressful, let's say. And anyway, long story short, that was stressful in its own way, and it was re-traumatizing, because even just being there at all reminded me of the big dark place that I had been, and it didn't work out. So then I was put through training to do different work, and I was hoping, because of the pandemic, I'd be able to work from home. But anyway, it was all a mess. But the gist of it is, my therapy that I'd had for years and that I'd been counting on, it came to an end because I had reached what they called MMR, maximum medical recovery. Basically, you know, you're still messed up, you're never going to be cured, but you're as good as you're going to get. So bye-bye. So my therapy was cut off, and in a way it was okay, because my therapist was not very sympathetic anymore. She wasn't very helpful, to be honest. I think she might have actually been a COVID minimizer, and I think she was annoyed when I went on and on about COVID, and she just didn't want to hear it. Because I don't think she was careful. I mean, for one thing, she was a smoker, so I know health wasn't her top priority to begin with. And just some other things she said. She was kind of abrupt with me. And then I remember the last time I talked to her, I knew that I was only going to have a couple of sessions left, and we were on the phone, like phone appointments. I wasn't seeing her in person. Once it was the pandemic, no, it was just on the phone. And she kind of said, "Is this helpful? Because like we do this every week, and I don't think this is," I'm like, first of all, our appointments are once a month, and no, it's not very helpful. I said, if you don't want to talk to me, then you don't have to call. So she dismissed me, and that was it. And I mean, she really wasn't helpful anymore anyway. And I mean, I don't want to dismiss the treatment entirely, because she was helpful for years, and I'm grateful for the cognitive behavioral therapy. So the camera just randomly shut down. That was kind of distressing, but anyways, this is much longer than I intended it to be, and I'm going on about things I didn't intend to, but anyway. So yeah, I went through cognitive behavioral therapy and learned coping mechanisms, and I mean, it was helpful for a long time. And I also, for a brief time, I had an occupational therapist. Now, she was awesome. I mean, she felt more like a friend than a therapist, because if I'm being honest, my psychologist, sometimes I felt like she was judgmental, and it felt like she's always telling me what I'm doing wrong. You know, these are your negative thought patterns. This is what you have to try to change. Whereas my occupational therapist, she was trying to help me with my return to work plan, and she was just a cheerleader. She was so kind and encouraging and empowering. It's like she accepted me as I was, and instead of telling me all the things I'm doing wrong, she was focusing on the wins, like focusing on things that I'd done well, and you know, that were very brave. For example, because I was a single mom and I was broke, when my toilets broke, at first a friend had offered her husband services. He was going to fix my toilet. That did not happen, but I bought this kit, and I'm like, I have this kit. I wonder if I just follow step by step, if I can do it myself. And it was terrifying. But funny enough, I recorded on video. My friend recorded the video. I think so. My friend recorded me fixing my own toilet. It is my most popular video. It has 85,000 views, which is so weird because it's like the most unlikely thing I'd ever be doing. But I fixed my own toilets, and it was terrifying, but I got through it step by step, and I did it. So, I mean, I could do things. Like, I always doubted myself, and I always thought, you know, I'm not good enough and I can't get through this. But at the end of the day, I do get through it. And the thing with anxiety is it can be so overwhelming. And you feel like you're not, how can I live through this? But you do, you get through it. And the thing is, avoidance is my favorite. I would rather never feel anxiety, if I'm being honest. And I do avoid a lot of things that I know are anxiety triggers. If I can avoid them, I would rather do that. But you can't avoid everything. Like, life happens. Distress is going to happen. So it's a matter of, you just have to deal with it and know, okay, I'm feeling this. And instead of resisting, because there's a saying, resistance is futile. In a way it is, because the more you resist something, the stronger it is. What you resist persists. So instead of like trying to fight this, like this is a terrible feeling and I don't want to feel this way, like almost sort of lean into it, because an emotion is like a wave. And sometimes it's a big wave. It can be a tidal wave. It can feel like a tsunami, but it will die out. This too shall pass, no matter what. So when I feel those waves of emotion, and they are overwhelming, it's awful. I hate everything about anxiety. I mean, there are moments in my life where I've felt anxiety and I've felt depression. Anxiety is worse, because at least depression, it's almost like it's just this weight where you just drag down, but there's almost a comfort in it, because when you're so sad, you just cry your tears and you almost don't even care about anything else. Whereas anxiety, it's that sense of alarm. You have to do something. You can't just curl into a ball and cry. You have to do something about it. But anxiety comes from basic primal emotions, your fight or flight, fear and anger. That is, it's impelling you to action because it's part of survival. Like, obviously, if there was something coming to attack you, you have to, you know, either fight or flee. You have to do something about it. So instead of resisting those feelings, they are natural feelings. Instead of resisting them, just kind of, okay, yeah, I'm feeling fear. So why am I feeling fear? Now, if there's a problem, because anything going wrong does trigger my anxiety. But if it's a problem that I know I can fix it. If something is broken, but I can physically fix it and then check that off my list and not feel anxiety, fix it. But some things obviously can't be resolved immediately. Some things depend on other people. Some things are out of your hands. I can't stand feeling helpless. I like to feel safe and in control. So I'm not a fan of those things that I can't control. But you just deal with what you can. And it comes back to this serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, serenity doesn't mean that you just live in the "this is fine" meme and just, oh yeah, this is okay, even if everything's on fire around you. No. If there's something wrong and there's an action you can take that action. Put the fire out, get out of the building. Like, serenity doesn't mean ignoring reality and pretending everything's okay. That's unnatural. A natural response to a threat or a danger is to do something. Run away. If, you know, something's coming at you that's a danger, run away or fight it, whatever you have to do. The problem is that sometimes you can feel anxiety over things that are vague or abstract or that you have no control over. So that's where you have to have the serenity to say, okay, and the wisdom to know this is something I can't change, but, you know, I've just got to live with it. I've got to exist with it. The problem now with a lot of people, with I would say the majority of people, is they are living in the "this is fine" meme. They don't want to deal with reality. So they've just chosen to ignore it. They're just avoiding it. Like, la, la, la. Oh no, we're not in a pandemic anymore. Pandemic's over. That's why they hate seeing masks, because it reminds them of reality. That, to me, that's not a solution. You're actually putting yourself in danger. fear keeps you alive. If you have no fear, if you're fearless, you're going to take stupid chances. Like, you don't have to take unnecessary risks. So in some ways, I'm grateful for my anxiety, even for my PTSD, because my hypervigilance is my default setting, and that has kept me safe. Because I was diagnosed before the pandemic, but I feel like in a way my anxiety prepared me for the pandemic, because I already was built to respond to threats, to be aware, and I mean, I jump at loud noises, and any perceived threat, I am going to want to do something about it. And, I want to be safe and in control. But sometimes there are things that I can't do anything about. I can't control what other people do. So I mostly just avoid other people. Even friends and family, I've cut ties with everyone. Now that's another thing that's been hard, because not only do I not have my therapist anymore, who wasn't that much help at the end there anyway, but I don't even have my support system of my family and friends. There was one friend that was trying to make plans, since the pandemic, and I was just not having it. Like, there's literally no way. Like, no, I don't feel comfortable being around anyone, even outdoors. Like, some people, even that call themselves COVID cautious, they still get together outdoors and they still see their family unmasked. Like, that is not an option. So I stopped seeing everyone. And one of the people that I was closest to, my closest friend, I would say, now I cannot relate to her at all. She's a stranger now, because she's a minimizer. She just chooses to believe that COVID's no big thing. Her whole family had it, and she's just choosing to believe this is fine, even though she's had health issues. Her husband has had health issues, which I'm sure are related to COVID, but they would never admit it. And they're unmasking. They're unmasked everywhere they go, and they're going out and doing things. So I can't relate to that. So that's really hard too. Like, I wrote a song at one point, and I had a line, when your safe place is in danger and your best friend's a stranger. That's anxiety inducing too, when you don't even have that support system, when even the people that you trusted, that you thought were in your corner and had your back, when even you can't trust them, because they would literally kill you if you let them. They're not masking. They don't care if you get sick. Like, some people seem to be so cavalier. Like, do you not realize you have at least a 1 in 4, if not 1 in 2 chance of getting long COVID? So long-term disability from infection, but you're still going around unmasked. Like, it's not an option for me. I'm a single mom. I need to be okay for my daughter. So no, I am not taking the chance. I'm not risking our lives. I'm just not. So it's very hard when you feel like there's no one you can trust. Like, even the people that you did trust, no, they're different now. I call it a zombie apocalypse. I don't say that lightly. I'm literally like, people have lost their minds. So yeah, I don't have those people in my corner. So that is hard. Because yeah, basically my world now is Michelle and Allie, my cat, and I talk to my mom on the phone, and sometimes my mom and I argue, because although she does admit that I've been right about pretty much everything, she doesn't want to miss out on things. She still sees my siblings who don't mask and take chances, and what can you do? So it is very hard, but for the most part, I stay home. Like 99% of the time, I am home. Now, because I wasn't going anywhere. Now, we used to go for fast food sometimes, and then monkeypox was out years ago. And once we knew, we not only had to worry about the air, we had to worry about surfaces as well. We stopped going for fast food, because it's like, oh hell no, they're not wearing masks and they're touching your food. No. So we stopped going anywhere, and I didn't drive for like a year. Well, my car seized up. So then when I tried to drive, it wouldn't start. So then I had to get a new battery. Anyway, had to have some work done on the car. That was extremely stressful. And I asked the guy, okay, what's the bare minimum that I need to drive the car just to keep it running? And he said like once or twice a week, a short trip once a week, and then one long trip per month. So that's what I've been doing. Like, I literally don't leave the house other than to get packages on the porch. I have everything delivered. My groceries are delivered. Anything I need, I have it delivered. And then that was even stressful, because this main company that I was getting most of my deliveries from, I had a couple of orders that were marked undeliverable. I'm like, oh my God, if I've lost my supplier, like that was very stressful for me because that was kind of a safe place too. Just a minute, Ali, I'm doing a video. That I could get stuff from them, and then all of a sudden I couldn't, so that was very scary. But anyways, I went a month without ordering from them, and I ordered everything from other places, and now I've started ordering from them again, but I'm trying to order less. But anyway, so have everything delivered. Even to go on my porch, I'm wearing an N95 mask. Do not leave my house without N95 mask, even to mow my lawn, anything. And I don't go anywhere. So my one trip in the car, we go out just a very short trip, just driving around the neighborhood, and yeah, and that's pretty much it. And to get my mail, I wear a mask. I don't go anywhere else. Now, when I was running low on gas, then I was nervous because I had to get out to pump gas. Like, you can pay at the pump, at least. I didn't have to go in, but I still, and the other thing is my, when you go to pump, it's an old car, and the gas cap thing, whatever, it doesn't always pop out. Like, you pop the thing inside the car, but it doesn't open, and you have to get a credit card and kind of like jimmy it. Anyways, I was dreading when I had to get gas for the first time after like years of not even driving the car, and now I had to drive it again, just short trips, but now I had to get out and get gas. So I was shaking. I was like, oh my God, I was dreading it, but it went okay. And yeah, sure enough, the silly, whatever you call it, the little thing that flaps open to get the gas cap, anyways, it wouldn't open, and I had to dig at it. But anyways, got it, got my gas. So relieved to get the gas and to get back home. Like, I'm always so relieved to be back safe at home. Home is my safe place. That I think of, oh my God, when I see like Hurricane Helene, and I see people and they've lost everything. Like, I cannot imagine like losing your home, your safe place. It's so devastating. Like, I can't even go there. I mean, hopefully I'm in a relatively, knock on wood, safe place, but how do you know? I mean, North Carolina, like some of these places that were hit so hard, they're not even coastal areas. They're not even beside an ocean. Like, they've got a river, but they had rain for days, and then they had this huge hurricane, this huge storm, and just the area was not equipped to deal with it. And all this water and all this mud and landslides, and everything just washed away. Like, it's so scary, the world right now, because the things that you build up for years can be washed away in seconds. It's terrifying. Like, how do you deal with it? And I mean, I do watch the news, and I watch these things, and then my mom sometimes says, well, why do you watch the news if it's going to upset you? I want to be informed, and I want to know what's going on in the world. And if there's anything that I can do to avoid a danger, like, obviously the people in these areas, if they knew this storm is coming, like, get out, evacuate. And most people did evacuate, but still, I mean, there's hundreds missing. I think the last death toll was 200. It is terrible. It's terrible, and that stuff does upset me, but I want to be informed about the world, and it does make me grateful for where I am and for being relatively safe for now. But I mean, with all that's going on, wars going on, and the pandemic still raging while people pretend it's not happening, and the climate emergency and natural disaster, there's so many things that can go wrong. And a lot of what triggers my anxiety, uncertainty, the unknown, unpleasant surprises, things going wrong. I try to avoid uncontrolled variables as much as possible. Like, I try to just control what I can, stay safe at home, but things can still go wrong, okay? Like, for example, I was trying to grow I thought, I'll grow my own fruits and vegetables, won't that be fun? And it was a nice little hobby for a while, but things go wrong, like even in the house. I mean, not even going out. And I got these, I did a video about it, these stupid spider mites, and they destroyed the sweet potato plants. I mean, the sweet potatoes, they grew these beautiful vines, but it all got taken over by these stupid little, almost microscopic, they look like specks, and they destroyed it. And I had to get rid of the sweet potatoes, and I had to get rid of a few plants, and like, it was so discouraging. It feels like everything that I try to do, it feels like it falls apart. It feels like nothing's good enough. And I said to Michelle one day, like, it feels like chaos wins. Like, there's chaos and there's control. And it feels like chaos wins because destruction is always easier than, you know, like if you're building a sandcastle, you could spend hours building meticulously this beautiful sandcastle, and then the wave can just come and wash it all away. Like, it's always easier to destroy things. It feels so cruel and unfair that these things can happen. But I mean, the climate emergency, we have to act on climate. We can prevent this, but it's going to take commitment from governments and from people, and we've got to change our lifestyles. We have to adapt, but people are resistant to change. What do you do? Another thing, okay, so recently, a very traumatic event that happened. Allie, okay, Allie doesn't even go outside anymore. I used to let her outside in the backyard with us when we went out, but now we don't even go out. Even when I mow the lawn, I'm wearing a mask. We haven't put the pool out in years. We had the pool up in 2021, 2022, but anyways, we don't go out, so we don't let her out. And also, since bird flu, I thought it's not safe because there are birds in the backyard, don't want her getting anything. So she doesn't even go outside. But all of a sudden, Allie had this eye infection. At first I noticed just like she had this stuff running out of her eye, and I would just wipe her eye. I didn't think too much of it. But next thing you know, she was getting like, it was getting swollen, and it got really bad. Like, it got really ghastly, and it was terrifying. And I didn't know what to do because I don't go anywhere. And I already didn't trust vets to begin with, even long before the pandemic, because I had another cat that went for an operation and died, and it was very traumatic. So I mean, I don't go to the doctor myself, don't go anywhere. I didn't want to have to take her to a vet, but I was scared, like what was happening. I didn't know. And at one point I saw she had these scratches, and I thought, she's probably clawed herself, and maybe it's gotten infected because if you've seen other videos, I have to bath Allie regularly because she's a heavy cat. Her butt gets very messy, and then she's in her bed, so maybe feces are on her bed, and then maybe if the cut got infected, I don't know what happened. I didn't know what had caused it, but she was so swollen, like you couldn't even see her eye, and it was terrifying. The camera keeps stopping, and I'm running out of space on the memory card, and there's too much to get through. Anyway, long story short, Allie was in such a bad way, but she was still eating, and she was, you know, purring and acting normal, even though she looked like, oh, it was terrifying. So I prayed, I used salt water to clean it, I had aloe vera, like trying home remedies, and at one point I went online to look, like, can you see an online vet for free to get advice? And there was one that they said they were free, but then they're asking for a credit card number. I'm like, no, that does not sound free. But anyway, long story short, I used home remedies. I prayed to Saint Francis of Assisi, who is the patron saint of animals. I just hoped that she would get better, and thank God, knock on wood, she keeps getting better. All the swelling went down. Her eye looks back to normal. In fact, from a distance, you wouldn't even know anything was wrong, but she's missing a little bit of fur. But that was very scary to me, and that was like, I try to keep us safe. I try to control everything I can, and things can still go wrong. Like, these random awful things can still happen. And I worry about my parents because they're elderly and they have health issues. And, you know, I haven't even been visiting them. And when I did visit, it's outdoors, it's only for a short time, and we're wearing N95 masks. So my mom knows I will never go for a meal. We're never removing our masks. But yeah, so I mean, traumatic things happen, and I have a hard time dealing with things. I remember reading, because I knew that I had PTSD and anxiety, but there was one time I saw something from my doctor, and she'd written adjustment disorder. And that had never been mentioned to me. It's like, I didn't even know what that was, but it's when you have a hard time coping with change, and you could be overly emotional. You can like cry easily and get irritable, and it's kind of like PTSD, but on a shorter term. But in a way, I feel like I've had this adjustment disorder forever too, because I do have a very hard time coping with change, the unknown. I don't like unpleasant surprises. I really don't like surprises at all, but especially unpleasant ones. I don't like uncertainty. I did another video where I had an appointment to go to and I was terrified about that. I don't want to deal with people at all because people are uncontrolled variables. I don't know what they're going to do. And if somebody is kind of sketchy, like I don't like passive aggressive people, rude people, it all triggers my anxiety because it feels like a threat. So most of the time, I just try to avoid the things that I know are going to trigger my anxiety, but life happens. Like I still have things to deal with, even at home, and things can still go wrong. So I basically, if something is broken and I can fix it, I fix it. But okay, for example, oh my gosh. So years ago, my dryer, I had a dryer fire, and anyway, I did several videos on that, and I tried to fix my own dryer. Like I even got I replaced the thermal fuse. Long story short, I wasn't able to fix it. So I've been living without a dryer for years and just hanging my clothes to dry. Well, now recently, several months ago, my washing machine stopped working. That is far worse. It's far worse than just not having a dryer. So I have been washing my clothes by hand. Now, when you just have a couple of things, it's not that bad. Like I wear clothes and I wash them. And in the summer, you're just wearing light clothes, whatever. But once I let it pile up, it's overwhelming, washing my clothes in a sink. Now, we don't go out, so I try to wear the same things a lot. Like, I might just wear my pajamas anyways. But it's hard. But I'm dreading getting a new washer and dryer because that means having someone in the house, and I just don't want to deal with it. Like that stresses me out that I'd almost rather just keep washing everything by hand. But big things and towels and sheets, I can't wash by hand. But anyways, it's really hard. And financially, like things are tight. So that's a constant stress. And just trying to make ends meet, like groceries are more, everything is more, and yet I'm on a very fixed income, like trying to live on 1/3 of what I used to have when I was working. It's all very difficult, and and I'm doing this on my own, isolated, without help. So I do have a lot of anxiety. But I think the way I try to deal with it is just accepting, I'm going to have a knot in my stomach. Sometimes I'm going to have a pain in my chest. I'm going to be sweating. But usually it will dissipate at some point. Like I will have some point where I can take a breath and relax once the situation is resolved. But sometimes it takes me a long time to calm down. Like I remember there was one time in a parking lot, I'd gone into a store. This was before the pandemic. And I was going back to my car, and I have like a taupe colored Hyundai, and I was walking up to what I thought was my car, and it was dented, like the driver's side door, like somebody had hit it and like hit and run. And I just had this feeling, this knot in my stomach and this pain in my chest. I'm like, oh my God, someone hit my car. And like, I was so upset, like my heart was pounding. And then I realized it wasn't my car. And then I was relieved, but I couldn't calm down for like over an hour. Because that sense of alarm, like once I'm alarmed, once something triggers, okay, you're in danger, it's very hard for me to let that go. Like even when I know the situation's okay, like right now, like even once Ali, she was getting better, like it's still a constant worry and stress. Like her fur hasn't completely grown back. So I ran out of room on the memory card, and I had to try to delete some things to make room. Anyway, I've got to wrap this up. I didn't mean to ramble so long, but obviously it's a topic I could talk about for hours on end, as I did in therapy. But anyway, basically, if anyone's watching this that has anxiety, you're not alone. And anxiety is a natural emotion. It's a natural reaction to things going wrong. And, sometimes it might be an overreaction, and sometimes, an excess of anxiety can interfere. It is therapeutic getting this stuff out sometimes. I guess just the takeaway is, I'm living with anxiety, and the point is you do live with it. You don't eradicate it. You can't eliminate it. And anxiety is a natural human reaction to distress, to problems, to a world that's falling apart right now. Let's be honest. Like, have you seen the plays? I think anxiety and depression are a natural response to a broken world. The people that are sitting around smiling and acting like this is fine, that is to me unnatural. They're actually the ones with the bigger problem because they don't even know that they're putting their lives at risk. I would rather be overly cautious. I would rather overreact to a threat than to ignore it. So, and I mean, some things aren't real threats, you know, when I'm safe in my home, you know, just getting a disturbing email or, you know, a troll on Twitter and I just block them, like that stuff, that's not a real danger. That's not a real threat. And, you know, sometimes I wish that I didn't get so upset about things, but I'm grateful for my human emotions of fear and anxiety that are survival instincts. A lot of people have lost their survival instincts. I definitely have not lost mine. So yeah, maybe I'm on high alert and I'm alarmed a lot of the time, but I would rather that than to have this false sense of security and just feel like, oh yeah, everything's fine. You know, the other thing is a lot of people, they are medicated, they're taking drugs, or, you know, they drink alcohol, they have escapes. I'm not trying to escape reality. I'm trying to assess risks and mitigate and deal with reality. And when it comes to my anxiety, I know I can't wish it away. I can't make it go away. But, you know, I can ride the wave. I can know that it will pass, you know, like any wave, it does pass, you know, and more waves might be coming and sometimes they can be devastating, but you will ride it out and you will survive. So yeah, find outlets. Like for me, making videos, writing, singing, it gets it out of me because I do have all this stuff to deal with. And sometimes it is hard because I am isolated. I'm not going out. I'm not seeing family. I've cut ties with friends and everything. And I don't have my therapist anymore. But I have Michelle and I do still talk to my mom. And yeah, this is my outlet. So thanks for listening. And if you go through anxiety yourself, you are not alone. There are other people dealing with it. The thing is too, like, when you're out there and you're the only one masking, or you're the only one, you feel like you're the only one that feels nervous. Well, you're not. There are others out there. It's just, I don't leave my house. So you're not going to see me out there. So, you know, you're not going to see me in the street and wait, okay, like a fellow spirit, but I'm home and I'm online. If you're on Twitter, you can find me there. And here on YouTube, I post videos about a wide variety of things. Like I said, one time I fixed my toilet. It got 85,000 views. But I also post videos like this. I post songs, cat videos, Allie. I do want to do a video about Allie at some point, maybe about that thing, although some of it is very disturbing. But I mean, she got better. So like, you face these really scary, traumatic, awful things, but you deal with it and you do get over it. But the point is not to eliminate those distressing emotions. It's acknowledging them and knowing, you know, this is going to pass. Because I don't have that knot in my stomach constantly. Sometimes I am calm. I prefer when everything's okay and there's nothing to worry about, but usually there's something to worry about. But anyway, I've been rambling for too long as it is. So anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. Stay safe. Bye for now.